deadlift. Think about it as a hinge movement where you're pressing your sit bones to the wall behind you. As you press the sit bones to the wall behind you, inevitably the weight is going to drop in front of your legs. As long as you keep strong integrity and vertical integrity with your core. So think about engaging your six-pack abs, engaging your upper back, shoulders down and back in a proud chest-like position. As you bring those sit bones back, go as far back as you can. That's when you can start to bend at the knee to continue that deadlift, to bring those weights further towards the ground. And then you're going to come out of that flexion position into a fully extended position, back up to standing.
So as you come down, you want to make sure your knees are coming out over your toes. As you're holding onto the kettlebell by the horns, you're going to pull your shoulders back, depress your shoulder blades, and try to keep as tight a torso as possible. Make sure you keep as long a spine as possible so that you don't flex under the pressure of the weight. So increase that intra-abdominal tension.
You're focusing on keeping the knees as straight as possible. Obviously, you're gonna have a slight bend in your knees. Most of us don't have the functional range of motion to be able to lock out the knees. And think about actually driving your hips back into the wall behind you while you're bringing your torso down in that kind of Superman-like position or proud chest-like position, shoulders down and back, bringing the chest down as you're driving your hips back and your sit bones back into the wall behind you while keeping your legs as straight as possible with a slight bend in the knee. What you're gonna feel is intense engagement in the hamstring or the back of the thigh. This is the goal of the RDL. This is what we want. Once you reach your functional range of motion, then you're gonna come all the way back out into the standing position. Once the kettlebells are in a front rack position, think about keeping your forearms vertical or in line with gravity, and keep your elbows as close to your torso as you possibly can and your hands as close to your shoulders as you possibly can. Once that upper body is locked into position with that weight, you're going to start to do a squat. So in this squat, because the weight is up on top of the body and in front of the body, it's going to want to pull you forward. This is the beauty of the front squat. Because it's doing that, you're going to have to fight by trying to bring the hips forward a little bit in that front squat position. And because you're front loaded, you're able to actually keep the weight going through the heel. And this is going to actually hyper engage your core musculature. Remember, it's just like the single kettlebell clean and jerk. It's done primarily with the legs. The arms are just locking out once those bells are floated up over your head. So it's important in the jerk to have good functional range of motion in your overhead extension. So with the jerk, again, it's that slight drop of the hip, slight bend in the knee. You're going to explosively come out of that. It's going to float both of those kettlebells over your head. Once it's floated over your head, you're going to then drop your hips underneath the kettlebell and lock those arms out. Once they're locked out, then you're going to fully lock out the lower body, and then you're going to come down and continue the movement. You want a firm and solid grip. That's the most important part of doing any sort of explosive movement with a heavy weight like a kettlebell. As long as the kettlebells are in a solid position, you're going to squat down, and then you're going to come all the way up off the ground in an explosive squat jumping like motion. So think triple extension or quadruple extension, right? And you're going to come off the ground. And then the most important part of the squat jump, or really any jumping, is the landing. So you're going to really want to focus on reducing the amount of pounding or impact that you're going to feel by landing softly. I like to tell my kids to land like they are ninja mice. So as quietly as possible. If you're landing quietly, then that means you're absorbing the amount of force and you're not going to have the jarring impact that's going to hurt your joints. With the single leg, because one foot is going to be off the ground and typically it's going to be driving behind you, what you're going to want to focus on is not letting that hip rotate out or not letting your shoulders rotate out. So think about keeping the shoulders as square and the hips as square as if both feet were planted firmly on the ground. And when you do that, then you're going to really feel the engagement in that single side that is planted on the ground, through that hamstring or back of the thigh, as well as through the glute. And then of course, you're going to have all of that unilateral engagement through your vertical core, which is going to be just much more engaged, much more intense, because you're only loaded on one side. So the core has to work harder to keep you more stable.